Still plus politics. Now, President Buhari stated several times during his first tenure that he was waging a war against corruption. In fact, that is one of the things that he campaigned with. Now, the Economic Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, was charged with finding culprits and making them to face the full wrath of the law. But how have they fared so far since the establishment in 2003? Now, joining me to have this conversation is Mr. Tuyi Mebawadu. He's a political analyst. I got that right today. Yeah. Give me some credit. And of course, we also have Ni Fatogun. He's a public commentator. It's good to have you join us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, let's start with EFCC's fight. Yesterday, the Magu was at a conference and he was saying that the EFCC has prosecuted over 2,000 plus cases of corruption. But in 2017, we also know that they lost at least 80% of those cases. They were thrown out of court because it lacked some form of veracity, according to the court. I might not be very conversant with the legal jargons, but we see a lot of media trials. Now, recently, in my conversation with a civil rights activist talking about Mr. Femi Falana, he did speak on issues that he had with parading of suspects when they were not yet, declared either corrupt or not corrupt. And there's been a lot of media trials over the years by the EFCC. I'll start with you, Dr. Tuyi, before we go to that take by Mr. Femi Falana. How do you think the EFCC has fared over the years, especially under an administration that has zero tolerance for corruption?
Again, let's appreciate the fact that fighting corruption is a serious business, extremely serious business. And then what we've seen so far, I can tell you that the consciousness, the understanding, the perception of public about the corrupt attitude has heightened. And if you really need to change a thing, the first thing is signaling. You need to raise the perception and understanding of people as far as corruption is concerned. Even if EFCC is not achieving a lot of convictions, as you might have seen, if they have lost a lot of cases, because when things get to court, there are a lot of intricacies involved. If you're not careful, little thing, you're gone. You can remember the case of O.J. Simpson in the US and so many things that, of course, by tiny thing, the case is lost.
That was a murder case.
Yes, I'm just saying that this case is a case, court is court. So now the thing is that what the EFCC did was actually to raise the consciousness, raise the perception, understanding of corruption and the effect of corruption on the nation. For me, that's a wonderful start. We may not have had sufficient conviction, we may not have had sufficient, deterrence, but of course, having raised the consciousness, everybody now became a bit careful in dealing with public this thing. If you add this to all of that things that are...
Do you not think that the people being careful that you're using in that tense there was not necessarily about being careful because you're corrupt, but being careful because you might be on the wrong side of Mr. President and you don't want to be caught in that web, allegedly, of those who are not on the APC side of the story? Again,
you see, politicization of every aspect of human endeavor is doing us a lot of danger. It has happened in health, it happened in military, it happened in fight against corruption, and in everything. So again, we must be careful to be able to, to separate politicization of corruption from the real corruption itself. Okay, you cannot deny the fact that there are real corruption in the country, and it's hurting everybody in this country. It's challenging the amount of money that can go to health. It's challenging the amount of money that can go to education, security, and all that stuff. So again, if anybody chose to politicize corruption, that's them. I'm not in the realm of politics, but I'm in the realm of reality, because I have seen how much, the money that's budgeted to serve certain purposes are not being used because people felt that it's better for them to buy cheap and build houses in Banana or whatever, or buy houses in Abuja, or go and buy another house in Dubai. So again, if we don't deal with this matter, okay, because now I have children, they are going to have children. If I can escape it, they may not be able to escape those things.
Mr. Ni, to you, we know that in Nigeria, corruption has eaten deep into the fabrics. It's not just about, because the average Nigerian, when you say corruption, we think about the politicians. In fact, even when you're having a conversation with them, you say, politicians are corrupt. But we never bring it down to the barest minimum, which is the average person you meet in an office who's asking you for If you know they pay the 1,000, the paper know they move. So do we really have a clear picture of what corruption is? And does also the presidency and the Buhari administration know the kind of corruption they're fighting, or they're just fighting corruption in high places?
Yeah, again, I would say thank you for having me here. Yes, I think our problem with corruption is big, and from what we have seen so far, the present administration understands how big it is. The low-level corruption is not as big as we will think it is. What is majorly affecting us is what we call, or what they call, grand corruption. Grand corruption takes away billions that should go like into the health sector, but goes to, as my colleague said here, that goes to houses in Seychelles, jets all over the world. That's grand corruption. And the administration, it is clear for the past 4 years that they fought grand corruption to a standstill. There were policies placed in place. TSA was one.
But the TSA was something that was put together before this administration came into place. So
it was never implemented. Yes, they did the framework. The will to implement the political will is a different ballgame. You can put things in place. There are so many things they put in place. Most of it was imposed on them. Even the EFCC was imposed on them by the international community, on government. It's not that they willingly said, okay, we want to fight corruption, let's put together EFCC. Americans told everybody that did business with them that if you do not put things together to curb your financial corruption, we're not going to do business with you. So they had to put that together. But then the implementation, of course, was not there, because it was not them that put it together. We were forced to. The same thing with TSA, the same thing with a whole lot of other things. TSA and other things was to fight mainly money laundering. Okay? And that was an issue because of terrorism. So all that was put in place, but it was not really implemented because they know we still want to steal, sort of. So this president came in, and that was the first thing he did, and that caught grand corruption in a huge way.
I want to take you up on this grand corruption that you're saying that the Buhari administration has fought. I want you to break it down for me. So let's talk grand corruption. There are lots of politicians who flip-flopped into the other side, who have been fingered for your terms, grand corruption.
Absolutely.
They are still in government and they're still safe. But those who didn't jump ship have been made to face the music and are still facing the music. Is that fighting grand corruption?
I think there's a misconception there. Let me first quickly point out to you that 2 governors belonging to APC were jailed. So that clearly tells you that it is not a party thing. Okay, go. So when you talk about people too, most people mention Amechi here, Fashola there, they are still there. Really, they have really not been indicted for anything. But most importantly is that, yes, democracy prescribes something very unique. Once you become elected, or once you want to get elected, you have to seek the votes of everybody, and the criminal, and the good man, and the righteous. And the day democracy prescribes that the righteous
come with clean hands. So if you're seeking the vote of the criminal, what kind of fight are you fighting?
If I may interject.
What kind of fight?
Wait, if I may interject. Simply put, yeah, you made mention of people who, so figure to be corrupt on this side, for the politics, and this, it appears that they have sorted down. Now, let's face it. The best any executive government can do is to present to a court of law that, listen, these are the evidence I have against this person. Now, after presentation of such cases, you still have to go through a legal process of indicting and conviction. Now, if you observe Nigeria, the greatest challenge has been the process of indictment and conviction. It has been it's not presentation, okay? Now, if you're in Italy, the first thinking is that once you are charged with a crime, you are presumed guilty. You have to prove your innocence. But here, once you are charged with a crime, you are presumed innocence until somebody can prove you guilty. You can see the flip side of those kind of things. So that has been a huge challenge in the process, because in any situation, in any society, in any country, if you don't deal with law and order properly, you can't achieve anything. Of course, looking at you from your name, you're a Christian. Even God, in his energy and all he knows, when chaos was, upon the surface of the earth, he had to bring order to be able to do anything. So law and order, everything in society stands on law and order. If we are not getting that right, we cannot get society right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Talking about law and order, let me take you up on that. We have the law enforcement on one side. We have the judiciary on the other side. And whether we like it or not, we are all in this country. We know that the executive points fingers to the judiciary, as in fact Mr. President has said it before, that one of the reasons why it's difficult to fight this fight is that the judiciary is in the way. But we also have law enforcement who's also, one way or the other, very corrupt. How are we fighting corruption when we have not necessarily taken these people to the laundromat so that they can be able to do what we need them to do and do it right?
Again, I'm taking a lesson from society. Things don't just get bad. You don't commonly wake up and say somebody's organ is spoiled. It takes a process, okay? And the process to correct it also takes a process, okay? Now, we must always be on the same page. Unfortunately, everything that happens in Nigeria is placed on the altar of politics, religion and tribalism and ethnicity.
Yes.
So that is where we are. So if anything that's supposed to be sound and said, okay, because again, I tend to give an example of my experience while studying abroad, while doing research abroad, whereby if my friend violates the law and we're driving together, he violates the law, will I throw him to the law enforcement agency or will I protect him? And where we are, we've not seen law as the thing that holds all of us together in such a way that even if you are my brother and you mess up, I say you messed up. That's your headache. Go and face your music. I will be looking for a way to protect you. So again, we
call it a witch hunt.
Yeah, we call it a witch. We give it all sorts of tags because for us, if you know that the law says you must not do this and you do it, honestly, go and face your music. Why should I be bothered about that? But for us, we want to protect. We'll go to church to pray. We'll go to Babalawo to do juju. We look for a link to save us from this thing. Now, and these are the big problem that institution like EFCC is facing, because at the end of the day, I am not completely exonerating even the ruling government from that kind of complacency. Sometimes there's a lot of pressure on them to step down some cases, and these are the issues. But preponderantly, we've seen that the present government has been able to even look at the law of people in the eyes, and I hope that by the next regime, it will be higher. Do this regime to be higher, the next one will escalate it, and gradually we'll be able to move to a point where we say that if you mess up, you can face your music.
Mr. Nee, let's quickly, before we go to that video clip, because I've been told we have to look at it. Media trials, we have that a lot in this country. We sensationalize it. In fact, the moment we hear that you stole the glasses, we put it on blast, full blast. And we never really get all the information that we need before we put it out there. And sometimes, half the time, these people are not as guilty, or they don't even have evidence. How do we deal with that issue of media trial? Are there better ways for us to deal with, these cases when we know that we want to fight corruption? The EFCC seems eager. This administration is all about it. But how do we reduce these media trials? Because before the man is even proclaimed guilty or sometimes not guilty, we've all written the person off, and we don't give them a chance.
Well, you talked about media trial. You are the media people that are the ones who do these things mostly. Yes, I understand the EFCC also has its own part to play.
We're complicit,
because they go releasing press release, or maybe their lawyers talk after court cases and all that. But most of it, and I can understand, the journalists, as they say, bad news is good news. So the journalist wants to put it out there that this is what is happening. And a lot of it, unfortunately, are speculative. The investigative journalism part of it has not been so well developed, so that the journalist, the average journalist, actually sets the pace. Or the pace, sorry. They set the pace for even the trials, where they come out with facts. Nowadays, we see a lot of fake news that will actually more or less convict people before they are
actually taken to court.
They take it to court or whatever. So you see, these things they are mutual. The media has its own role to play, very big one.
But then in this country, where you're a journalist, I mean, let's even just use it, Delegua, for example. There is no safety net for... Let's look at what happened to the young men from Premium Times who exposed some things about certain persons, some information and leaks. And you know that a journalist does not divulge their sources, but then they were also subjected to all kinds of torture. So the average Nigerian journalist that you're asking to go into investigative journalism, what's his insurance? What is the coverage? There's no protection.
There's no insurance. It's all over the world. There's no insurance.
I'm even just saying, we're yet to appreciate journalism and the media in this part of the world. We can't compare ourselves to that part of the world where they appreciate the power of the media and investigative journalism, where you can actually use the FOI or other legal jargons to get information. You can't. Who do you subpoena here? I mean, sometimes so anything can happen to you and nobody says anything about it. Nobody picks it up after that. The channel's TV guy who was killed during Boko Haram, does anybody remember his name? After 1 million naira was given to him. So what would be the encouragement to go digging?
I think they should still go digging because it's all over the world. We see news item and journalists being posthumously celebrated for investigative journalism, that they probably on the job they got killed. Some are still even in jail. In Al Jazeera journalists in jail in some other countries. So it's part of the hazard of the job, okay, to try and get the truth to the people. So I think journalists should realize that here, and they should go deeper, go more bullish on investigating and getting out the truth, and not being speculative. The more you do that, the more they get respected by the people, the more they get the support of the people. Don't expect support from any government. You won't, because you are trying to expose them. No government wants to be exposed.
No government in the world will support you if you're digging dirt.
So you have to keep going. We see that every day, even in the United States. You understand? Okay. So I will encourage journalists.
Let's quickly go to that clip by Femi Falana, and when we come back, we're going to wrap things up. Still talking about the EFCC.
Class matter. It's a class matter. Nobody parades the rich. You don't parade a former governor or a permanent secretary or a minister who is alleged to have stolen 10 or 20 billion naira. You dare not. You only parade the flotsam and the jetsam of the society. You can't parade a big man or a big woman. You pay dearly for it. But it takes two to tango. If the media will learn to respect the rights of people, nobody will attend those illegal press conferences where people are presumed innocent until proven guilty, are paraded and branded and stigmatized as criminals. And like you said, on many occasions, at the end of the investigation, those who have been paraded are released without trial. Because they've committed, it's now confirmed that they committed no offenses. But happily, by virtue of Section 2 of the Anti-Torture Act of 2017, media parade of suspects has been prohibited. In fact, it's not a criminal offense to parade a criminal suspect.
Unfortunately, we don't have time. I wanted you to react to this, but we need to wrap up and go. But quickly, one sentence.
Well, honestly, that's an issue of semantics, because you see, when you parade somebody, or it comes out in the newspaper that this person is being, because there's a reporting aspect of crime or prosecution ongoing. There's a reporting aspect. If I have to report in newspaper, does that amount to parade? Okay? Because what we are trying to do is to bring public consciousness to an ongoing thing in the society. You need to do that because signaling is important to tell people that want to engage in that kind of thing that you can be part of the reporting.
What do you do to a person's image who's been damaged and he wasn't necessarily
damaged?
A criminal?
Again, you see, the fact that a lot of people escape incrimination in terms of a judgment that indicts them does not mean that they are not culpable. Again, let's understand this. The things, because you need to do a lot of legal things and find a way to escape from that. It's not parading, it's reporting. So let's get the word right.
So you know what I'll do to you? I will bring Falana and both of you will argue this out. But we need to go. We need to go.
He will quote law, I'll quote moral.
Okay, we need to go.
It's reporting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ni. Thank you, Ni Fatogun, public commentator. Dr. Tui Mebawandu, political analyst. I'm going to tell Femi Falana he has to be here.
I won't mind. I know him very well. That's not a problem.
Well, thank you for joining us. Coming up is our Plus report, and we'll take a look at that. And after that, I'll give you my take.
The event commenced with a ceremonial march past by a combined team of the armed forces. Shortly after the arrival of dignitaries, President Buhari arrived at the Eagle Square at about 10:23 a.m.
My optimism about Nigeria's future is unshakable, and Nigeria's role in the world as an emerging economic force is without doubt.
There was also a cultural display by the troop of the Guards Brigade. President Buhari, while expressing hope for a better Nigeria, reiterated his commitment to fighting corruption.
At the heart of inequality and insecurity is pervasive corruption. For Nigeria to progress, a collective resolution to address corruption and foster broad-based prosperity is required to create a country that is not only for a few privileged, but for all Nigerians. This charge is not only to civil servants, ministers, legislators, and state government functionaries, but also to corporate leaders.
He also used the opportunity to warn mischief makers.
This government will not tolerate actions by any individual or groups of individuals who seek to attack our way of life, or those who seek to corruptly enrich themselves at the expense of the rest of us. We will crack down on those who incite ordinary, innocent people to violence and unrest.
The high point of his speech was the commendation of the late MKO Abiola as Nigeria's hero of democracy, naming a national edifice after him.
As we all know, correcting injustice is a prerequisite for peace and unity. As part of the process of healing and reconciliation, I approve the recognition of June 12 as Democracy Day and invested the late Chief Abiola and Babagana Kingibe with national honors. Today, I propose the renaming of the Abuja National Stadium henceforth. It will be called Moshood Abiola National Stadium.
June 12 means many things for many Nigerians. For some, it reminds them of the day Nigeria's democracy was truncated. For others, it represents the undying spirit of the resilient Nigerian. While the federal government has come to accept June 12 as a national holiday, it is hoped that its memories will continue to guide the nation in the path of democracy.
The take-home from what has happened today is that power truly belongs to the people, and that no matter how long it takes, the will of the people will always triumph over any impunity. And I hope that what has happened today will put democracy on a sound footing, and that nobody will come tomorrow or any other day to roll back the gains that I've made today.
Today is a day of pride in our president and in our nation, that our president is a detribalized Nigerian. He is a Nigerian that did not care about any ethnic sentiment and put national interests above selfish interests by recognizing MKO Abiola's effort and struggle during the June 12th era.
Amadine Uyi, Plus TV Africa.
It's time for my take. It's good that the president recognizes the efforts of June 12's hero, Moshood Abiola. However, it is time to stop naming things after him and presenting honors to him. It's a good thing, don't get me wrong. The only way we can honor him is to do something about the issues that Nigeria is facing, especially insecurity. And don't just blame the people who are not in your party, or you wield your power without bias and bring the guilty to justice. Yes, because this is a new dawn. The Nigerian people have chosen you once again, Mr. President, because they believe in you. So do not disappoint them. Well, that's all for tonight. Do join us tomorrow, same time, for another beautiful and wonderful, exciting time on Plus Politics. I am Mary Anna Kundi. Have a great night.